We want the administration to succeed. Okay? Kasi ang success naman niya, success ng bansa eh. Okay?
Tama.
Pero, tingnan nyo naman yung mga pangako tuloy ng Presidente who is the brother of our sponsor na I hope umabot on a Sunday lunch meeting sa kanya. Okay? 20 pesos per kilo rice. So ito, kung sabihin ng Presidente, poverty incidence rate will be down to 9% at the end of his term. Yun ang sabi.
But the goal.
The starting point is 22%. If the DSWD figures are to be believed, mali. It should be 30%. Then how can he bring it down to 9% at the end of his term? Tandaan nyo, the President promised at the end of his term, single-digit poverty incidence rate. Ang interpretation ko doon, not more than 9.
Mali yung sinabi kanina.
Yan na naman tayo, yung PSA, talagang pinapabalik natin bukas dahil yung pagdating talaga sa statistics, mali-mali tayo.
Tama.
Siyempre, if you talk about households, siguro the DSWD has an idea how many total households in the Philippines. Kasama Forbes Park. Yan ang tanong ko.
Total.
Yung total.
Because they always deal with the poor.
No,
I think it's upwards of 20 million households.
20 million households.
Oo. Pero dun sa 20 million, yung considered poor, nasa 6 million. Ang nasa service, 4.4. Tama ba? Mali yung sinabi kanina. Mali yung sinabi kanina.
Yan na naman tayo, yung PSA, talagang pinapabalik natin bukas dahil yung pagdating talaga sa statistics, mali-mali tayo.
Tama.
So what is now the final answer?
Yes, so it seems
pero Mr. President, ang kawawa si PSA, siya ang pinapabalik.
Tama. Actually, di ba nagka-problema na tayo dyan kasi yung listahanan kung family versus household, tapos yung poverty thresholds, iba-iba rin kasi. Tapos ngayon, nasa CGMP naman tayo, iba na namang listahan yun. So, in any case, apparently there are 20 million households recorded in the Philippines. 6 million are assumed to be poor. 4.4 million are actually served by the 4-piece program.
From the point of view of our policymakers and program designers in the DSWD, 6 million households you assume them to be poor.
Yes.
Ama, yun pa narinig
That's
ko.
the finding of the PSA. Well, that's the finding of the PSA.
Kala ko 4.7.
Sorry. Now it turns out it's not PSA to blame.
Okay.
It turns out it's the DSWD's own listahanan 3 that says 6 million are in fact poor out of the 20.
Okay. Kaya ko tinatanong yun kasi nag-ratio percentaging ako eh.
Tama.
6 of 20, 30%. 30% households.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very large sum.
If we should follow that, then poverty incidence rates surveys must be in the vicinity of 30%. Is that the admission or the data of the current administration that the poverty incidence rate right now is 30%? 15% kasi yung current. Ano? Kuya, tigil ko na.
Hindi, the percent.
Level natin is like 19%. 18.
Yes, I think that the poverty level that's officially stated is always 18%. But by these numbers, the minority leader is right. It's upwards of 30+%. So there needs to be a distinction between the two.
Kasi yung listahan hindi naman buong country pinaka-assess.
Yes, I think it boils down to listahanan's weaknesses, and that's because listahanan does not assess the entire 20 million but a mere 15 million. May tinira pang 5 million eh. And we should also probably consider that listahanan was finished during the time of COVID so that the indicators would also
So we could be wasting money actually, giving to households who should not have qualified, if that is the reasoning, Mr. President.
Sinasama yung mga edge areas dito sa
I think there's a focus in the listahanan on the hunger hotspots, the really poverty-ridden areas, and they don't include the more prosperous regions. And as a result, it's skewed toward poverty, kaya napakataas.
Hindi. Even if yung 5 million na hindi nyo sinurvey, consider na natin hindi poor, it's still 30%.
It's still 30%. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, Mr. President.
Kasi you still boil down to 4.7 out of 15. So, malaki pa rin eh. This has always been the discussion. I think there's always been a problem with poverty data, and I'd be the first to say so, because as a governor, I had to disaggregate my own provincial data with great difficulty. Dahil unang-una nga, iba yung household at saka family, tapos yung consideration ng poor, malnourished, and so on, paiba-iba. So, eto nga.
Kawawa kasi presidente rin, Mr. Presidente. Sa SONA niya, he mentions figures eh.
Yes,
Kaya
18% nga.
Pati unemployment rate, naki-question natin, tinanong natin ang DOLE, mali-mali din ang mga figures. So ito, kung sabihin ng presidente, poverty incidence rate will be down to 9% at the end of his term. Yun ang sabi.
That's the goal.
The starting point is 22%. If the DSWD figures are to be believed, mali. It should be 30%. Then how can he bring it down to 9% at the end of his term, Mr. President? So let's help the administration. We help the president by feeding him correct figures, or siguro may factual basis naman po yung ating mga figures, hindi lang siguro baka desktop or tabletop calculations lang po ito. Actually, I appreciate niya the listahanan eh. Kasi ang assumption ko niyan, from the ground, sinuyod niyo po yung
That's correct.
ground.
Kasi may mga pangalan yan eh.
Oh.
Hindi katulad ng PSA na sampling. Nagsasample rin yung listahanan, pero basically, as you said, it's derived from the ground.
MTFF assumption. Then how come the administration does not use the 30% figure of DSWD, the more accurate figure? Kaya yung plano niya sa 2028, by the time the president exits, 9% na lang daw, single digit na daw ang poverty incidence rate. Kawawa naman kung hindi talaga ma-achieve, because he assumed 18 or 22% ng assumption. I'm getting the MTFF assumptions, Mr. President.
Yung lowest 40% of the...
Yes, I think the idea or the strategy of the DSWD is to saturate the poorest barangays. So yung more prosperous are excluded in their listing, which probably bloats the poverty number to 30%.
It
Kasi
does not-
saturation of rural and urban poor yan eh.
Secretary, with your people, it does not nga eh. That's my point. Even if we assume that the unsurveyed 5 million
Are all rich.
30% pa rin mas masama nga yung sinasabi nyo na 6 million of the 15 are poor. Ano na yun eh? 30+%, 36%, more than 36%.
Mas malaki talaga ever since yung DSWD working figures for poverty than PSA. Mulat sa poll, there's always been that disconnect. And we've
I mean-
always questioned it here in the Senate. And the answer has always been that their focus is to saturate the rural and urban poor barangays.
Yeah, but the administration which the secretary is part of, okay? Your success will be measured against your promises. Tandaan nyo, the president promised at the end of his term, single-digit poverty incidence rate. Ang interpretation ko doon, not more than 9%.
Correct.
Okay. And of course, may assumption siya. Di ba saan siya nag-umpisa? Di ba? Nung na-turn over sa administration niya, may assumption siya. Ang layo ang na-assumption na it's not in the vicinity of 30%, which is reflected by your figures na sinuyod ninyo from the ground. Ang mas maganda nga yung figures ninyo, mas maniniwala ako sa figures ninyo. Ano
Yeah, totoo.
assumption niya?
Kasi may pangalan to eh, may address.
From what? Yung ending yan, from start. Well,
Talagang ever since PSA, mas malaki talaga ang DSWD at mas maniniwala ako sa DSWD with all due respect dahil may mga pangalan, may mga address, may kung sino-sino talaga ang nakalistang poor.
kaya ang tanong ko po, do we see the problem or not? Yun lang yung tanong
Yes.
ko eh. I mean,
Yes, we're with you in complaining about this moving targets.
even the MTFF will fail, Mr. President, kung mali ang assumptions.
I think that's the reason why Listahanan 3 is now going to be folded in the PSA and CBMS data from the ground will be submitted to the PSA once and for all so we can consolidate all accurate data from below rather than projecting or sampling and so on.
Gapang nila.
Community-based monitoring.
Sila yun. Manpower nila yun. Yung CBMS po, manpower po ninyo?
No.
Kanina po.
This is going to be a combination. It's an existing project of the LGUs. They will be guided and analyzed thereafter by the PSA para isahan na lang yung ating data at hindi pa iba-iba yung measure. Oo.
Ito lang po for the information of everybody, especially the DSWD. Kasi
Sorry.
the Secretary is member of the official family para ma-discuss nyo po to sa taas sa cabinet.
That's correct.
In your MTFF, the assumption 2021 poverty rate is 18.1. Okay. Kaya malakas ang loob ng economic planners, ng official family, and of the President to commit that at the end of his term, 9% ang poverty rate. So, okay? So just, input na lang po natin yan sa planning po ninyo kasi
Pero it's the same. It's the same. It's still way off.
ito, at least we're talking to the President's sister, so, who is
I
our
don't know if
sponsor.
that,
Madam,
if that
ito.
helps the
Madam,
cause.
okay.
But I think there's a great hope pinned on the CBMS actually consolidating data once and for all. Dahil as we know, yung PSA naman very undermanned din. And the 2020 census, as a matter of fact, was finished very late dahil nga sa COVID. So talaga may problema lahat ng datos natin.
Kami po minority sa Senate. Hindi kami aligned with the administration, okay? Sabi ko, ang tawag namin, we are critical cooperators. We want the administration to succeed. Okay? Kasi ang success naman niya, success ng bansa eh. Okay?
Tama.
Pero, tingnan niyo naman yung mga pangako tuloy ng Presidente who is the brother of our sponsor na I hope umabot on a Sunday lunch meeting sa kanya. Okay. 20 pesos per kilo rice. Siyempre, binase niya yun on something. But if it was fed garbage in, garbage out, okay, ang plano sa energy, bago daw siya matapos ang kanyang termino, total household electrification. Sa hearing natin, magkano budget? 70 billion. Saan manggagaling? Di pa namin alam. Official Development Assistant. Sa housing. 6 million units, homes.
Binabala sa 3 million.
At the end of my term, 1 million a year. 1 year, more than 1 year now. Wala pa eh, na actual term. So in-adjust na lang. 6 million housing units to be launched. I mean, and then the poverty incidence rate.
No, I share the minority leader's frustration, and
I do not know the president very well, but I know he has interest in mathematics.
Yes.
Okay. Alam ko yan. Alam ni ate siguro yan. Okay.
he's math
interested
and
in
physics
mathematics. Okay.
major po.
Math and physics. Okay.
Yes po.
And then he always mentions governance being science-based. Okay, science-based. Pag science-based means you analyze the data, make your conclusions, but the data are researched. Iba-ibang klase research, theoretical, and of course the on the ground research. So siguro it's time for this administration to shape up in the first step. Let's have accurate data, collect accurate data so that the scientific-based decision-making process of this administration will really be effective and based on realities on the ground, Mr. President.
Yes, I think we all share your frustration, and that is why Listahanan 3 will now be folded. PSA hopefully is strengthened and fed through the CBMS system. And that way we get a more coherent picture in the Philippines.
When the sponsor says, Mr. President, Listahanan 3 will be folded, ano yung parang abandoned na? Discarded na? What is it? When is it folded? Folded means?
Kasi yung listahan ng 3 is going to be the last one. Ayon sa batas, siya na yung huli. Matapos yun, PSA na at yung ibang authorities ang magbibigay ng datos.
So,
Yeah.
PSA has in its budget now the funding,
Yan ang problema.
the funding for the groundwork necessary to create another
ang meron
list.
yung CBMS. Kasi ayon sa CBMS law, mag-umpisa na yung CBMS to gather with 679 LGUs, and the LGUs have funded it. So we are hoping that with CBMS, the data quality is improved.